It's been a little while, but we are back here on NFL Daily. I am Tom Downey, Stone Shields behind the scenes for today's live show. We'll talk all the latest going on around the NFL, coaching searches, and more. There have been two hires made so far. The Bears have hired Ben Johnson. The Patriots have hired Mike Vrabel. Let's make that Patriots one. What do you think is the better hire of the two that have been made as of right now? B for the Bears and Ben Johnson, or P for the Patriots and Mike Vrabel? This is also the pinned poll on today's show. 57% say Bears, 43% say Patriots. Get those votes in for me in the comment section of today's show. We'll see what the Jets and Saints and Raiders and Jags and Cowboys end up doing here. Tymon's got a P for Mike Vrabel. JR or Junior Games has P for the Patriots. B's, though, from Wasim Khan's. Eric Simmons, Skyler and Richard Lee have P as well, by the way. I forgot to mention that. Cobra Kai's got Patriots as well. Mark, chance for other back on the deal? No. Like, they've been to the facility. They've shown up. I don't really see any scenario in which that one ends up happening. So those guys are going to be the hires there. B for the Bears, P for the Patriots. Get those votes in for me in the comment section of today's show. If it didn't work immediately, you need to do it again. So there it is, Richard Cross. Broderick Strawn has a P. Richard Lee has a P as well. Get those votes in. B for the Bears, P for the Patriots. Those are the only two hires known. We'll see how much longer it takes to get any additional ones to come in. We'll talk more coaching stuff here and draft stuff as well on today's show. Before we get to that, Game Time, sponsor of today's live NFL Daily. Use the Game Time Picks feature. It's curation to make it easier to find better value for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, everything else in between. Download the Game Time app, create your account, use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create your account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, ChatSports, for $20 off. Go download Game Time today. Links in the comments and the description of today's show. And so, too, is the link to Prize Picks. It is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. It's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Now, we'll talk about the Raiders and other coaching staffs here in a little bit. But predictions. Who do the Cowboys end up hiring as their next head coach? We'll talk Raiders, we'll talk all the teams here, but in this little build-up section, I wanted to do Cowboys first. A lot of buzz, it might end up being Brian Schottenheimer, which would be the most shocking head coaching hire since Jim Thompson with the 49ers, which we know how that one went. Kellen Moore was the favorite, and been a lot of buzz for Schotty, who's interviewing today. There's been one report that an offer might come for Schottenheimer. It's something. Kellen Moore was a popular answer. Dion had the initial buzz, and it kind of feels like that may have just been like hype generation of like Dion getting an extension there and Colorado in the end, and Dallas getting more attention. But it's been as we're going to this, a nonsense search, a search that has featured like 4 names and like 2 people didn't interview anywhere else. You got the betting favorite right now hasn't interviewed for a head coaching job in 10 years. Over 10 years actually. Hasn't been a play caller in 5. Seriously? Like, you don't promote the backup plan when it's bad. You do it when it's good and you lose the top guy. It's something. So we'll keep an eye on that one. A lot of Kellen Moore votes. If you'd asked me this 2 days ago, that's who I would have gone with. I think that would have been a kind of an easy one in the end. So Who do the Cowboys end up hiring as head coach? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. It is a interesting search at the moment for the Cowboys. We'll talk about all the teams, by the way, and go more in depth on them and kind of, focus on the other ones. We'll also talk quarterbacks on today's show. Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. Who do you think ends up being first drafted among the QBs? I would be shocked if it was somebody else, if it was a Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe or Will Howard or Quinn Ewers or whatever. It's just, it's got to be one of those two, and both guys have concerns for me. Both guys have concern. SS for Shedeur Sanders, CW for Cam Ward. Let's see. We've got CW, SS, CW. I think around a 50% vote, like who you like better, is probably fair. There are pros and cons with both of these guys that make it interesting to me. Tough calls, right, Robert Bruce? I think the Titans had the first crack at it, and I think that their previous regime liked Cam Ward, but now the GM got fired. So, who knows what Mike Borgonzi and what Brian Callahan end up wanting in the end. So get those votes in. SS for Shedeur Sanders, CW for Cam Ward. Now, if you are ready for us to start today's live show, then like the video. Goal was always a 50% like ratio. We're not there yet. We've got 130 people watching, about 30 likes. So kind of a long way to go on that one. So like the video if you haven't already done so. Please and thank you. It's free. It's simple. It's easy. And it allows us to continue to keep the lights on here at Chat Sports, because more likes equals more views and more subscribers, and we can have more success as a channel, as a company. So appreciate that, guys, everyone who has already liked it. Also appreciate the $2 super chat from Doug Lamb. Can we just boycott going to the games? And I assume this is about the Cowboys games. Yes. What I would propose that also benefits me is don't go to the games, don't watch the games, just watch our streams of the games. I get to feed my family. You get to not totally bail on the Cowboys, but it does still send a message that does not benefit them. Who says no? If they hire Schottenheimer, I just don't know what they're doing. I had messaged somebody. Someone messaged me like 3 weeks ago, hey, what are the Cowboys going to do at the head coaching spot? One of the coworkers here at Chat Sports, and I went, something stupid, probably. Probably the most accurate statement I've ever made in my entire life. Probably. Coming up live on today's show, not that there's a lot of them, but still, low bar. NFL news and rumors, coaching search updates on that one. A mailbag, 2 ways to get on. You can use hashtag NFL or Super Chat. Guarantee you get on the show as well. We will also run through Mel Kiper's quarterback rankings. So if you haven't already, make sure you guys are locked in. Like the video, and we'll get things started. We'll see how long it stays this way with just 2 hires made in the NFL coaching cycle. What is the better hire made so far? B for the Bears landing Ben Johnson. P for the Patriots bringing Mike Vrabel home. Get those votes in for me in the comment section of today's show. Those 2 hires leave 5 open jobs at the moment. The New York Football Jets, the Jacksonville Jags, the Las Vegas Raiders, the New Orleans Saints, and the Dallas Cowboys. Let's begin with the one that this morning kind of felt like was the closest to getting done. That is Aaron Glenn and the Jets. The Jets are interviewing Glenn again today in person, and reportedly they don't want to let him leave. And that was said, as of filming 8 hours ago. So it's been a while since that update, but Glenn is, I think, pretty clearly the favorite for the Jets. If they miss on him, maybe a Brian Flores stands out there. Glenn has worked his way up the NFL coach ranks. Began his post-playing career as a Jets scout, was the Browns' assistant DB's coach, became the Saints' DB's coach, jumped up to the Lions' DC. Outside of the scout part, which I actually find very intriguing, this is how a lot of coaches end up working their way up. Assistant position coach, coordinator, and now potentially head coach. Now, the disaster class that was the Lions' playoff loss is a valid thing to have concerns about. I would also point out the Lions' defense for the majority of the season until around week 13, week 14 was statistically one of the NFL's best. And then they got absolutely decimated across the board by injuries, put them in a pretty bad spot, and then have now resulted in them falling apart. The other interviews the Jets have had, they did a very wide-ranging coaching search. Brian Flores, Jeff Hafley, the Packers and Vikings DCs, Vance Joseph, for some reason Mike Loxley. But turns out when you interview like 15 coaches, you can forgive the couple weird ones that are in there. Josh McCown as well, Matt Nagy, Ron Rivera, Darren Rizzi, who's the Saints interim head coach, who could end up joining the Bears staff under Ben Johnson. Rex Ryan was an early interview, which almost like them doing him a favor. Bobby Slowick, Steve Spagnuolo, Arthur Smith, Joe Witt, Jeff Ulbrich, and Mike Vrabel, who, of course, took the Patriots job. Ulbrich, by the way, already took the Falcons DC job. He was I'll call it a courtesy interview as the former interim. But a lot of defensive minds were the target there for the Jets. Some buzz that maybe Clint Kubiak ends up being his OC, by the way, up in New York. So let's say, hypothetically, the Jets end up hiring Aaron Glenn. How would you grade said hire? A, B, C, D, or F? It's the pinned comment on today's show. So if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Let's go to Jacksonville, where they were in the mix for Ben Johnson, but he reportedly didn't like the organizational structure, which, to be clear, he didn't want to work with Trent Baalke, the GM. And there had already been one report that Khan had convinced Ben Johnson that Baalke wouldn't have to be there if he was the guy. And then in the virtual interview, they kind of still made it sound like Baalke was going to stay. So he's like, I'm out there. The Jags are allegedly down to 3 finalists. Liam Cohen, the Bucs offensive coordinator. Patrick Graham, the Raiders defensive coordinator. And Robert Saleh, the former Jets head coach. Of note, already being reported out of Tampa that the Bucs are bracing for Cohen to leave for the Jags job. They've had a couple other interviews as well. Brian Flores, Aaron Glenn was interviewed. Todd Monken, who can't have a second interview actually can have a second interview now. Kellen Moore and Steve Spagnuolo have to wait for potential second interviews for any job. Cohen has had a rapid rise to where he's at in his NFL career. He was the Rams assistant coach, QB coach, back in 2020. Took the Kentucky offensive coordinator job in 2021. Then the Rams OC, back to Kentucky OC, had a lot of success this year with Tampa. Maybe his biggest argument, he is the one guy that's made Will Levis look like an actual NFL QB in that 2021 campaign with the Kentucky Wildcats. So we'll keep an eye on Cohen, but in my early head coach predictions, this was my guess. Kind of sounds like that's the favorite as we sit right now. Now, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks, and they're helping make today's show possible. It makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out all the fluff to only show you the incredible deals on great seats. So don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different tickets for NFL playoff games, concerts, comedy, theater, everything else in between. Keep an eye out for the super deal. It's the best value for a particular event, by the way. The all-in pricing feature shows your total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You can get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. Download the Game Time app today, create your account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. The Game Time guarantee is this, by the way. You find tickets in the same section and row for less, it will credit you 110% of the difference. Terms apply. But again, create your account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, ChatSports, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today for last-minute tickets, the lowest price, all guaranteed. Let's get to the Raiders now. They tried to land Ben Johnson. Tom Brady was throwing his weight around. Weren't able to get that one done. Brady clearly has a lot of influence in this search. He's actively involved, despite also prepping for a Super Bowl broadcast. The Raiders, of course, also searching for a GM at the moment as well to replace Antonio Pierce. Early buzz is that Pete Carroll is the new frontrunner for the Raiders head coaching gig with Ben Johnson no longer an option for the Las Vegas Raiders. That was for a report from The Athletic, which I think does make a lot of sense. the Raiders coaching search has been kind of interesting. They interviewed Aaron Glenn, who might end up with the Jets, or the Saints, with them in a little bit here. Interviewed Vance Joseph, interviewed Ron Rivera, interviewed Robert Saleh, Steve Spagnuolo, the Chiefs DC. They also requested an interview with Todd Monken, the Ravens offensive coordinator, but as of filming, they have not scheduled or had that interview yet, but it certainly is one to keep an eye out for. It would be the third head coaching job for Pete Carroll since 1994. How about that for a statement? 1 year with the Jets, didn't go very well. Patriots was better, but not great. Had immense success with the USC Trojans, and then a long-time coach with the Seattle Seahawks. And, oh, by the way, is a very old coach. He's in his 70s. Doesn't look like he's in his 70s. Doesn't act like he's in his 70s. However, he has great energy, and I think could actually bring a much-needed stabilizing presence for a Raiders team that's undergone a lot of change. Probably too much change over the past few seasons. So predictions on the Raiders head coaching search. Who do you think the Raiders end up hiring as their head coach? Let me know in the comment section of today's video. Let's go down south to NOLA, where the bad weather has delayed the in-person interviews the Saints had previously scheduled. Aaron Glenn had been viewed as a top target for this job. Again, as of filming, the Jets stand out as an obvious option here. Of note, Mickey Loomis has been their GM since 2002, which is an insane time for a GM. That's a hell of a rundown there for him. The Saints interviews that we know so far, obviously we mentioned Aaron Glenn. Mike Kafka was set for an in-person. That's been delayed. Anthony Weaver was set for an in-person. That has been delayed. Mike McCarthy has been heavily linked to this job as well. Joe Brady, the Bills offensive coordinator, with his LSU ties, would be a really fun hire for me, but they have to wait to interview him again with the whole Bills still in the playoff hunt thing. Kellen Moore, Darren Rizzi, Cliff Kingsbury as well, though Cliff is also waiting. We will have more NFL news, rumors, updates for you, everything else in between right here on the channel. Hit that sub button if you haven't already. YouTube.com/chatsportstv. Last and actually, you know what, maybe least, the Dallas Cowboys. Their head coaching search has been, I don't know if there's an English word that exists to describe like what is the weirdest coaching search I've seen since the Niners just went ahead and hired Jim Tom Sewell and it all blew up in their faces. The Cowboys have 4 interviews. They interviewed Kellen Moore back on Friday, interviewed Robert Saleh on Saturday, Leslie Frazier on Monday. They can now interview and hire anybody they want to. The Rooney Rule has been fulfilled. As we sit here filming a little bit after 5 o'clock Eastern time, Brian Schottenheimer is in the middle of his interview with the Dallas Cowboys to be their next head coach. And there's been buzz that might end up being the pick by Dallas, which would be something. Other names that have been linked, but there's been no interview. Anthony Lynn, the Commanders running back coach, who could also be an OC candidate for anybody that ends up getting hired in Dallas. Cliff Kingsbury, but again, they have to wait to interview both of those guys. Deion Sanders has been heavily linked to this particular job, but no interview despite being the first call from Jerry Jones. And it sounds like there's a real chance that Jason Witten ends up on this staff no matter what, which is kind of crazy that the assistant coach who is coaching children right now, but because he's a big name and potential future Hall of Famer, is the most likely guy to be on the staff no matter what. This has been a weird search from the Cowboys and Jerry Jones. And I know I speak for a lot of Cowboys when I use the word uninspiring and outright concerning that this is their plan. If there actually is a plan, I have my doubts, to replace Mike McCarthy as the Cowboys head coach. This is a not good search that we've seen so far out of Dallas. And we'll see what ends up happening in the end. It's Jerry. Anything can happen, but the vibes are bad in Dallas. It is mailbag time here on NFL Daily. 2 ways to get on the show. You can use hashtag NFL or skip the line altogether with a super chat. So again, that's hashtag NFL or skip that line altogether via super chat. Got Chris B's super chat already in. Let's hit that one outside of the mailbag. Just because I go to it now because I feel like there's a chance that the decision ends up getting made before the mailbag goes out, and I don't want to jeopardize messing it all up and having all kinds of issues there. So We'll get to Chris B. Super Chat right now. He says, I'm really checked out if Dallas hires Shoddy. I don't disagree. The vibes, the morale, I feel like it would be as bad, if not worse, than it was when they were actually in purgatory and were like trotting out Chad Hutchinson and Drew Henson at quarterback week in and week out. Quincy Carter's the savior. Like that's, I don't. It's a dicey situation as far as I'm concerned, and I don't like the vibes of it. I don't like it at all. Get your questions in via hashtag NFL. Skylar is in there. Cobra Kai World is in there as well. Some others as well. If you want your questions answered, you got to use that hashtag NFL. There's also a super thanks we'll kick off today's mailbag with. So get your questions in right now via hashtag NFL or skip that line altogether and super chat. We will do the Lamb one as part of the mailbag. I think that one's fine. So yeah, Doug one. Yeah, that's fine to include the mailbag, I think. From CJ DeYoung III, a $5 super thanks. Today's players and most 25-year-olds could use a large dose of authoritarian coach or adult in their lives to help them grow the F up. Thank you. This was, by the way, in reference to like the idea of hiring Deion Sanders as the Cowboys head coach and why our Commanders host thought that was a good idea in the end. I don't disagree. I think what the decisions are is like how large is said dose. I don't think the throwback 70s styles coaches work particularly well. I think it's more of a, you need to have some semblance of tough love and not just, everything's all fine and dandy and you don't want coddling. There's the old spare the rod, spoil the child. We don't use rods anymore, though. You can kind of find a middle ground, which I do agree with. And CJ, thank you for the super thanks as well. Now, this is a feature on YouTube. It's just like a super chat. It's on demand. Allows you to donate outside of live videos. Click the thanks icon, edit your message, send in whatever. We will give you a shout out every time there's a super thanks here at Chat Sports on our live shows because we appreciate your support. Doug Lamb. Now, again, we're filming this mailbag before any decision made on the Cowboys head coaching search, but relevant, I think, to the overall conversation, so I wanted to include it. I think Dak had a hand in potential decisions so Dak can have more control of the team and call plays for the offense. I honestly don't. And if that is the case, I don't know what this team is doing. You don't let the quarterback pick the head coach. That's not how it works. There is an organizational hierarchy. You want the quarterback and head coach to have a good relationship. I have no doubts there is a good relationship between the offensive staff and Dak Prescott because Dak's a good soldier. He eventually gets along with everybody in the end. There were issues between Dak and McCarthy, and they got it figured out in the end. This is where your ownership has to do a good job. I think it would be kind of crazy to me if somehow it's still Dak's fault that the ownership hired a head coach that we don't want. Which I know it's not what Doug is saying, but that will be a claim that ends up getting made. I think that you need to. My issue here is that you've not done a real coaching search. Interviewed 4 people as of filming, and 2 of them nobody else wanted to interview for even a coordinator role. From True Allure, who should the Niners hire as defensive coordinator and special teams coordinator? I think from a D coordinator standpoint, the ideal and I think favorite outcome is Robert Saleh ends up returning as the defensive coordinator. If it's not that, it is, oh boy, Brandon Staley. I don't have a great answer for you on the special team side. That doesn't sound like Nick Sorensen is going to end up being an option there. In the end, I would have loved to got Bones Fossil. I would go look at the best special teams coaches and say, okay, who's your assistant coach? But you got to get somebody new in there ASAP. From Sanderson, is the Tyreek Hill trade dead? Maybe, who knows? I don't know. It's all been kind of quiet on that front. It might be that maybe Tyreek let his emotions calm down a little bit and is now, setting himself up to kind of balance and have one more run with it. Because the Dolphins just paid him. I don't think they want to trade him. I also don't know if the agent wants to have Tyreek Hill demand a trade for a second time, which didn't work out as well as he wanted the first time. I think it might have just been emotions and frustration. What will the Dolphins do with Tyreek Hill? T for trade, K for keep. Let me know in the comment section of today's show. It's the pinned comment, so if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Ricky Torres, is Quinn Ewers a possibility for the Raiders? In round one, I sure hope not, because he is not ready to be an NFL starting QB. At some point in the draft, absolutely. Now, Ewers has a lot of footwork issues that lead to inconsistencies as a passer, which you're willing to overlook when you're, an inexperienced player. And Quinn, by the way, is only 21 years old. Now, he turns 22 before the NFL draft, but he is still pretty young. But there's also a lot of reps. You got to kind of change that muscle memory on to not when that Oklahoma game lives rent-free mind. He steps in the pocket. It's pocket to step up. It's a clean pocket in the end. And instead of throwing it like this, with shoulders square and everything, his feet are flared out and he's almost throwing it like this. So no surprise, you're throwing it like this, and that ball flails out way to the right and it's picked off. That play lives rent-free in my mind because it's all these I have with Quinn Ewers. So, possible? Yeah. Day 3? Sure. Upside, gamble on the arm talent there. But you got to be patient. Christian, does Eric Bieniemy return to the NFL? I would not be surprised, but I don't think it'll be as a offensive coordinator. Kind of feel like going back to his roots as a running backs coach is the most likely outcome here for Bieniemy. The UCLA offense, I don't care what the agent said about it being a mutual decision. They said it was a decision to go to UCLA in the first place. It wasn't. The Commanders didn't want him back, which they made the right call. Cliff's been way better as an OC. UCLA's offense was terrible this year. They're talking bottom 10. So I think a team in the market for a running backs coach, maybe the Chiefs have an opening there somehow. That would not surprise me at all. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. It is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. It's available in over 30 states, California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. The playoffs are here. It's your last chance to get in on the action. This is our conference championship Prize Picks slate. Jalen Hurts, less than rushing yards. I like with the knee injury. Jaden Daniels, more than passing yards. James Cook, more than rushing yards. He's been very good for the Bills this year. Download the app today over at prizepicks.com/CLNS. And use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use that code CLNS to get $50 instantly today. Cobra Kai World. Should the Patriots pursue Trey Smith in free agency, and how much do they offer him? I think there's a long list of teams that should pursue Trey Smith. That is the Chiefs offensive guard, who is going to be one of the highest paid offensive guards, if not the highest paid offensive guard ever. I think we're talking $20 million per year, ballpark, somewhere in that range, if not even a little bit higher for Trey Smith with inflation and all that stuff. Highest paid right guard is $20.5 million. Highest paid left guard is $21 million. So you're in that $22 million range. And for a cash boosted team with a lot of cap space to spend like the Patriots, throwing a bag at him makes a ton of sense. Justin Arnold. Will the Seahawks trade DK Metcalf? Yeah. I would not be surprised, actually. I don't know if it actually happens, but I think it is a real possibility. The way the contract sets up, they have the option to move on. I don't know if your head coach wants to give up a good but not elite player. I think it's kind of plateaued. He's going to be a 1,000-yard player, but there are going to be elements of his game that just aren't going to get any better. And teams need receivers. It's a big-time name. I would not sleep on a potential DK Metcalf trade this offseason. Name a player who you think ends up getting traded. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Lakura Victor. Hopefully I pronounced that right. If not, I'm terribly sorry. Now that Chicago got Ben Johnson, do you think that they'll trade or sign a blockbuster during the upcoming offseason? We'll see what they do. Seems like Ryan Poles got to keep his job, so we'll see what their overall plan of attack is. I think if they can get an offensive lineman, again, a team that makes a lot of sense for Trey Smith, right? if they can get a lineman, that might be the big splashy move. Like Ben Johnson had a lot of success in Detroit with a really, really good offensive line. So if we can count offensive linemen as a blockbuster, that wouldn't surprise me. Also wouldn't be shocked if they throw money at the O-line in the offseason and maybe spend a first-round pick on like an Ashton Genty. Or maybe it's a round 2, round 3 pick and they invest in the offensive line early. That would not surprise me either. Mark Kearns, which quarterback draft class is better, 2025 or 2026? It's a great question. In general, we are often the victims of, hey, next year's draft class is going to be even better than this year's one, especially at the quarterback spot. That does happen. That does happen a lot. But it's also very unclear how good that class is going to be next year. You're looking at maybe Arch Manning. We'll see if he wants to go pro. Or if he's good. We haven't seen very much of him. Drew Aller's been really inconsistent. Connor Wigman was bad this past year. Garrett Nussmeier is intriguing, but also kind of a streaky football player. Lenore Sellers, Nico Amaleava, Jackson Arnold, like those guys are, it's a dicey group. So I don't love this quarterback class. I also would be a little bit wary to say, yes, next year's class will be better because it just might not be. Now, if you're enjoying our NFL mailbags, thank you. Make sure you are subscribed as well. YouTube.com/chatsportstv. Skyler, I think Spags won't take any coaching job because he will take over for KC when Andy Reid retires. I would actually like that for the Chiefs, more than I would think I'd like a Matt Nagy hire in KC, which also wouldn't necessarily surprise me whenever Reid calls it quits. Yeah, Spags in the end might just be a great defensive coordinator, but I am surprised there's been the limited amount of interest in him over the course of his recent run in KC. From Reggie Wayne. Wait a minute. Maybe. Who knows? The profile picture's generic. Maybe not. Can't disprove it. Where does Kirk Cousins play? Browns? Titans? 2 good teams. Raiders? Jets? Stopgap option to replace Rodgers? I don't know what ends up happening with Kirk Cousins because he's getting paid a lot of money. He wasn't very good. He, in theory, is going to be a bit better coming off the injury, but he's very old. There's no leverage at all for Atlanta. Browns do make sense, though, because I think they're kind of out on the Deshaun Watson thing finally with another Achilles injury. If I had to guess, I think I'd say Browns because he fits the Kevin Stefanski offense, but I'm not sold on that one. Who do you think ends up adding Kirk Cousins this offseason? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Rob, if the Jags make the wrong hire, does Trevor Lawrence request a trade? This offseason, no. If it's bad again for a year or two, I guarantee you start seeing those rumors pop up. Because I think there was already some reports that his dad was kind of unhappy with the general way things were being run in Jacksonville. I think the bigger issue is the presence of Trent Baalke. I don't think he's good at his job. I don't know how he keeps getting to stick around. That kind of blows my mind. But that's where they're at. They got to get this one right for sure. Cobra Kai, if the Patriots fail to sign T. Higgins, should they trade for DK Metcalf? They should try, yeah. Now, they might have to know on T the reality because I don't know if Seattle wants to wait till the free agency period for a trade of DK Metcalf, but that one would not surprise me at all. What do you guys like more, D, T, or F? Yes, we're doing it that way. Apparently got a bug bite on my shin. Driving me insane. D, T, or F? What do you guys like more in the offseason? Draft, trades, or free agency? Do you get it, Stone? Yeah, you didn't realize it? Every time I do it for the first time for hosts, they go, oh, like halfway through they kind of realize it. So, D, T, or F? I will answer Dwayne questions. Why could the Cowboys didn't reach out to Eric Bieniemy? Because he's not a serious head coach candidate. No one's firing a fired offensive coordinator from one of the worst college football teams offensively to be their head coach. Granted, no one was looking at Brian Schottenheimer either, so I guess we could have kept it as a possibility, but I don't know. D, T, or F? Let me know in the comments section of today's video. What do you guys like more? Get those votes in. A lot of D's. For NFL, I rank it draft, free agency, trades. NBA is trades, maybe draft and free agency, and then MLB is free agency, trades, and draft. Because that's not no one tends to really care about that one. So let me know what you like more, D, T, or F. Before we get into the NFL draft focused video we have coming up next for you guys, if you want more NFL draft videos here on Chat Sports, simply like this one for me right now. Mel Kiper has dropped his updated 2025 quarterback rankings, so I wanted to break them down and give my own thoughts on the players, of course, here as well. At number 1 for Mel is Shedeur Sanders, the Colorado quarterback, who is also, by the way, the number 4 overall player on Mel's big board. He has always been a large fan of Shedeur Sanders, gives him a lot of credit for being tough against all the sacks. I would also point out that some of the sacks are his fault. He tends to hold the ball a lot longer than he needs to. He's also a very accurate quarterback. Shedeur, for me, is what I call the executor of an offense. You know, if the scheme isn't terrible, if things are the way they're supposed to be, if your head coach says, hey, this is read 1, this is read 2, get through them, maybe get to read 3 if we have to, I think he can do that on a pretty effective basis. He's accurate, got a quick release. The overwhelming physical skill set is not great. I know he's listed at 215. He'll probably be 215 at the combine, and he ain't going to test. Because I think that will be water weight, kind of like Bryce Young. He played closer to 200 at Colorado. He's not got a big frame. He's not an elite dual threat. He can move. He's not a statue. But the physical skill set isn't overwhelming. Now, Cam Ward also doesn't have the same overwhelming physical skill set, but he demonstrates a little bit more mobility and a little bit more arm angle stuff. You know, the extreme example is Matthew Stafford, I think, could throw the ball backwards somehow, and it would go forward. Like, he's got unbelievable arm flexibility and angles that he can deliver. He's had some ball security issues in the past. That is a valid red flag. He holds the ball too long. He is a creator on offense. Sometimes a creator on defense as well, where he makes mistakes and is inclined to hold the ball too long, force a bad throw, get picked off. But he makes plays happen. You know, if you're running a Shanahan-style system, maybe you're more interested in Shedeur Sanders. If you're trying to get someone to generate big plays for you, Giants, Dable, Cam Ward stands out to me. Overall, for this 2025 quarterback class, it's not great. Someone probably becomes a starter. Maybe you get a Brock Purdy-esque guy that emerges as a late-round pick who becomes a starter for you. For me, Sanders and Ward are very clearly the top of the class. And there is a draft order, or a drop-off after that. These guys have real concerns in their games. They've also shown a lot more on a consistent basis, especially outside of structure, than a lot of the guys we're going to get to here later on. Who do you think gets drafted first? SS for Shedeur Sanders, CW for Cam Ward. Pin comment prediction. Go vote SS for Shedeur Sanders, CW for Cam Ward. Mel's got Jackson Dart at number 3 on his list. And I do wonder if a very impressive bowl game performance against the not good Duke defense, missing a bunch of key guys, was a huge factor in that. Jackson Dart screams back up with maybe more. When things are the way they are supposed to, when it is on time, when it is in structure, when it is the first read, Jackson Dart has everything you're looking for. He can throw that ball a country mile. The deep ball success was better than anybody in college football. And if you watch the Florida game, you know the downsides too. Where if the first read's not there, when he doesn't get to benefit from a great college offense that doesn't translate that well for an NFL scouting purpose, things get dicey. And it becomes, oh boy, after that, got to make him do read things out. It's not very good. So Dart's got arm talent, can chuck that ball way downfield in a positive way, but the consistencies, the high-level NFL quarterback asks out of him were not there on Ole Miss film. Then there's Jalen Milroe, Alabama's quarterback. And this is the pros kind of get whittled down to this. Throw ball far, run fast. That guy normally gets you drafted pretty early. He ran for 700 yards, 20 scores on the ground this year That guy, I think as a running back, he's a draftable player. Now, of course, the quarterback is first and foremost there. We watched Anthony Richardson have worse production, I think be more consistent as a passer, go top 5. That is not a good comparison to have with the way Richardson's done so far. I think if you're drafting Milroe, he has to sit 2 years. I don't see consistency in the way he reads out of defense. I see inconsistency with his technique and his footwork and all that stuff, and it leads to errant throws. His mechanics are kind of a mess. He doesn't trust the middle of the field. It's not good. There's like shades of Malik Willis, where Willis just would not pull the trigger on things over the middle, and that made Mike Vrabel hate him, by the way. The physical skill set, from an arm strength mobility perspective, is better than anybody in this class. But that does not make you a great quarterback. It's a lot of the other stuff, and that's where Milroe's lacking. Today's show is made possible by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature. It's called Game Time Picks. Makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to only show you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. It is curation to make it easier to find the better value on tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, everything else in between. Maybe your team's not in the middle of a playoff run. That is okay. They will be able to, you can do theater, do comedy, you can do something else, and still save some good money with the Game Time Picks feature. Use the all-in pricing option to toggle it on or off to show your total cost up front, so there are no surprise fees at checkout. Download the Game Time app today, create your account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create your account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Check the comment section, the description for the link, and download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, all guaranteed. Number 5 is Quinn Ewers, and very hyped high school player. Has immense arm talent because his footwork is so bad, he's able to still push that ball downfield. Definitely benefited from the Steve Sarkisian offense, where it makes life easy on their coach, on their players, the quarterback included. I've got 2 big issues with Quinn Ewers. Arm talent's great. He's bad under pressure. Ever since he took that hit against Alabama that messed up his shoulder, he has not been the same. He kind of sees pressure and goes down. He kind of runs into it, creates his own pressure, does not manage a pocket the way he needs to. Even with the quick time to throw, mostly schemed up, holds the ball too long and will make mistakes under pressure. He also has just awful footwork. Now, footwork is personal. And, objectively speaking, Aaron Rodgers' footwork is not good. But it works for Aaron, so no one cares, and nor should they care. When the footwork's bad and you leads to consistently inaccurate throws, especially downfield over the middle, where you get picked off a lot, I don't like that. I think he has great mastery of the Sark offense, but the inconsistent passing, I'm not a fan of. Number 6 is Will Howard, and I think he made himself some money with that college football playoff run because, NFL owners are actually watching there in the CFP. They're not going to watch, random Big Ten games against Purdue, but they will be watching against Texas and against Notre Dame. Howard this year threw for 4,000 yards, and this is a 16-game season, so it's fairly relatable to an NFL campaign from a numbers perspective. Competition level, not so much. And he was nails in the college football playoff, despite the turf monster getting him a few times on scrambles. He absolutely benefited from the supporting cast with 3 5-star recruits, another top 50 guy that played, and a tight end, and 2 running backs that'll be top 70, top 50 picks. But Howard's got good size. He's 6'4", 237. He's bigger than a lot of these quarterbacks are. He's got good arm strength, not elite, but it's good, mostly accurate. In a class that's not very good, you can absolutely convince me that Will Howard should be quarterback 3 in this class. Not over Cam, not over Shadur, but you can convince me in this bad class that someone's going to go, you know what, this guy can run our offense, he can make plays, he can be a low-end starting QB, or at least should have a 10-year career as a backup. Now, in the money rounds 1, 2, and 3, how many QBs are drafted in that range? Let me know in the comments section of today's video. Kyle McCord is next up here. It's also funner to see Will Howard and McCord back-to-back with each other, which is really, it's humorous as far as I'm concerned. McCord kind of turned into a gunslinger this year for Syracuse, which was very funny given what he was doing previously at Ohio State. I think maybe he's open for a third-round pick. Kind of try to apply briefly. Threw for a lot of yards all the way at Syracuse. That team was airing it out downfield a lot more than what we'd seen in previous years. Again, has solid size, not a statue in the pocket. I'm thinking backup QB in a class that kind of has a lot of potential backup QBs, if I'm being honest here. Let's go to number 8, Curtis Rourke, and we'll go faster on some of these down-the-line names, so to speak. Ohio transfer to Indiana was much better this year for the Hoosiers, was a big factor in their success on offense. He is a big guy, by the way. He's 6'5", 223. You wouldn't think it. Was battling a knee injury all year long, didn't show much mobility, showed a bit more at Ohio. Also Canadian, by the way, which is very rare. Doesn't have great arm strength, though. I think he's kind of a limited skill set quarterback. Now, we will have more NFL draft coverage for you right here on the channel. Do not miss out. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/chatsportstv. Louisville's Tyler Shuck, that is how it's pronounced, by the way, is next up here. And this is somebody who really helped themselves out this year in particular at Louisville. Now, Tyler Shuck is not a young player. He is going to be 26 years old in September. That's because he has been at college for an extremely long period of time and never really got good until very late in his career. He was a late bloomer, despite being a very highly touted recruit, many years ago, Oregon, everything else in between. But he's got good size. He's 6'5", 225. Didn't do much at Oregon for 2 years. Kind of lost the job at Texas Tech 3 years in. He's a 6-year college football player who had by far his best year ever with Louisville. I'm a little surprised to see Dylan Gabriel as low as he is at number 10. I think you can make an argument he should be higher. Doesn't have a great physical skill set. Put up great production at the college level at both Oklahoma and at Oregon. Lefty thrower, which makes everyone compare him to Tua, but I don't think that's a necessarily great comparison, despite being from Hawaii and also small. He's listed at 5'11", 204. The weight might be right. He might be closer to 5'10". The arm strength's not great. I think there's limited creation ability, despite some flashes of it at Oregon. Screams backup QB to me. Again, a lot of these quarterbacks are backup QBs. Is there anyone you think Kiper left off of his quarterback rankings? If there is, drop that name for me in the comments section of today's show. Some other NFL draft prospects I want to mention. Riley Leonard out of Notre Dame, who he can run, but he's not a very good passer. Max Brosmer, I think it's Brosmer, not Brosmer. Minnesota did some decent things this year. Brady Cook is a Shrine Game guy. Peyton Thorne is that's how deep we're down, like the Shrine Game quarterbacks are like, Peyton Thorne's going there, and he wasn't very good. Cam Miller from North Dakota State, it's not a very good group beyond those top couple players at most. Back to the pin poll on today's show. The best hire so far. B for Ben Johnson, P for the Patriots. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. 61% voting for Ben Johnson in that pinned poll. 39% voting for Mike Vrabel and the Patriots. And we'll see if one comes in next. I will make note, by the way, not head coaching related, but Josh McDaniels going back to the Patriots. So predictable. And maybe not even that bad of a thing in New England as an OC. He's had great success. Anywhere else, not quite the same. Vrabel gets his buddy back there. Better hire so far, B for the Bears and Ben Johnson, P for the Patriots and Vrabel. So very fitting. I wouldn't be surprised if Dennis Allen takes the Bears DC job, by the way. Now, for more NFL news and rumors, hit that sub button. YouTube.com/chatsportstv. More NFL videos all day and, of course, live playoff coverage on Sunday.